Welcome to episode 25 of Got a Story for You. I'm Phil Giunta, and this is our Halloween special, as evidenced by my ghoul friend over my shoulder here. And before I delve into today's story reading, I just wanted to update you on a few things I mentioned in previous episodes. The first of which is a new horror anthology that was delayed about 6 months by COVID 19, but just in time for Halloween, we have some scary stuff. Scary Stuff is an anthology published by Oddity Prodigy Productions. They're a Delaware based small press. It is an homage to the classic EC Comics titles like Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, Haunt of Fear. And if you're a fan of those comics and you read those comics, you're probably familiar with the layout and the format of this gorgeous cover. Scary Stuff contains my short story, Burn After Writing, dedicated to one of my literary heroes, Harlan Ellison. Scary Stuff is available right now on pre-order from Amazon in paperback and will officially go live on Monday, October 26th, just in time for Halloween. So if you're looking for some creepy, eerie reading this Halloween, look no further than Scary Stuff. Check it out. And thank you for supporting small press writers and publishers. We definitely appreciate it. Speaking of which, my next update is actually the end of a journey for me. About 7 years ago, I began editing short stories for a series of speculative fiction anthologies. Speculative fiction meaning science fiction, fantasy, and paranormal or horror anthologies called the Middle of Eternity series. We started in 2014 with Somewhere in the Middle of Eternity. In 2016, we published Elsewhere in the Middle of Eternity. And now we come to the end of our journey with our third and final book, Meanwhile in the Middle of Eternity. All three books published by Firebringer Press, a Maryland based small press around the Baltimore area. But rather than me delving into a description of the books and of this newest entry into the trilogy, I'm going to share with you a video that I made last year for our Indiegogo campaign, which is currently in progress. So check it out. I'll be right back. Hi, everyone. My name is Phil Giunta, and as some of you know, I am the editor of the Middle of Eternity speculative fiction anthology series published by Firebringer Press. In 2014, we produced Somewhere in the Middle of Eternity. We then followed that up in 2016 with Elsewhere in the Middle of Eternity, and now we are preparing our third volume to be titled Meanwhile in the Middle of Eternity. And we're excited to have yet another amazing cover by artist Mike Reel, who of course did the covers to the previous two volumes. Many of the writers from the first two volumes will be joining us again, including Stuart Roth, Susanna Riley, Michael Kreitzer, Daniel Patrick Corcoran, April Wells, Lance Woods, our venerable publisher at Firebringer Press, Stephen H. Wilson, and of course I'll have a few stories in this volume as well. And we're joined by some new voices, including Sean Drulinger, Julie Feeden, Peter Ong, Christopher Ux, and Bart Palomaro. And as with the last two volumes, we continue our tradition of accompanying each story with a black and white illustration. And here are a few samples of those illustrations. We brought in a group of artists this time, including Mike Reel, Tim Marin, and Laura Inglis. Writers Julie Feeden and Christopher Ux illustrated their own stories. And speaking of stories, we're once again delivering a diverse and fantastic array of themes, but don't just take my word for it as the editor. Let me give you a quick rundown of some of the adventures you'll find in these pages. You'll join gods and mortals in combat against slithering demons in famine-stricken Finland. You'll witness an unconventional battle of wits as a devious genie tries to outfox a clever robot. You'll ride with two hapless delivery men as they stumble upon a ritual to propitiate an ancient and malevolent force from beyond. You'll escape to a remote corner of the globe with a family fleeing an insidious alien invasion. You'll follow a fraternity pledge as he undergoes an initiation to terror at a local cemetery. So we hope you'll browse the reward levels that we're offering and consider sponsoring our anthology. We'll, of course, post updates every so often, additional samples of artwork, excerpts from some of the stories, and we appreciate your support. Thank you very much for watching. Okay, enough with the announcements. Thank you for your patience. Onward with this episode's story reading, Bottom of the Hour, originally published in this anthology, A Plague of Shadows by Smart Rhino Publications, a Delaware-based small press. A Plague of Shadows was released in October of 2018, and it was quite an honor to be included in this book alongside such an august group of writers, including Bram Stoker Award winners and nominees. To give you a synopsis of Bottom of the Hour, a young man with the uncanny ability to hear death acquires a haunted car with a sinister past. I hope you enjoy Bottom of the Hour. For the lucky ones, death carries them away as gently as a dandelion pappus on a spring breeze, while others suffer in prolonged agony before drawing that final, wheezing breath. Regardless of how the Grim Reaper went about its macabre business, Victor Orologio could always hear it coming. Just as he did one early summer day traveling aboard a crowded bus from Manhattan to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. As it had since Victor was 10, death announced its arrival with an incessant two-tone chime and a throbbing in his left temple. It was a sound much like the simple, repetitive alarm of a car's dashboard signaling an unbuckled seatbelt. In Victor's case, it was a dulcet death knell for someone in close proximity and only ceased when the victim did. And I was having such a good day. In his window seat near the back of the bus, Victor massaged the side of his head while surreptitiously glancing at the other passengers around him. So which one of you will it be, and when? God, please let me get out of here before it happens. Abruptly, the bus stopped, and murmuring from the front drew Victor's attention to the window. As the bus inched toward the right, state police cars, fire rescue, and an ambulance came into view in the left lane, followed by the smashed, twisted remains of a minivan. Finally, Victor noticed the woman atop the stretcher, and he knew. Shit. As the pinging and pain intensified in his head, Victor watched the EMTs load her into the ambulance. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He wondered if anyone else had been in the van. Husband, children. He would find out later when he searched online. Well, at least I won't need to save the obituaries this time. Outside the bus terminal in Bethlehem, Victor donned his sunglasses and surveyed the parking lot. It didn't take long to spot his best friend's 1971 Ford Maverick. It wasn't a car you see every day, and if one happened to cross your path, it usually stood out, especially with a dual color scheme of mustard and bondo. Victor opened the passenger door and climbed inside. The vinyl seat was cool to the touch. You got the air working. Feels good, right? In the driver's seat, Antonio Tony Herrera adjusted a set of levers to the left of the steering wheel. Cool air blasted from the vents. Replaced the compressor this morning after I dropped you off. Wanted to get it done before the heat wave hits tomorrow. Victor buckled in and leaned his head back with a sigh. You all right, man? Tony asked as he pulled out of the parking space. Headache. Normal headache or the oh shit it happened again headache? Accident on 78. I heard the chime just before I saw one of the victims loaded into an ambulance. She's probably long gone by now. They rode in morose silence for a few minutes before Tony spoke up again. So how'd the sale go? Victor patted the check in his shirt pocket. Perfectly. Earlier that morning, Victor had traveled by bus and subway to Brooklyn to close on the sale of his late grandmother's house. The windfall left him with more than enough to assuage his financial worries for the next few years. Maybe now I can finally buy a place out in the country. He waved a hand toward his ear. It's maddening to be surrounded by so many people here, waking up every day wondering if that damn death detector is going to start ringing in my head. You do realize you'll need a car if you move out to the sticks, right? You won't be able to take the bus everywhere like you do now, and I ain't driving all the way out there every time you need a ride. I'm not looking to move that far out, just enough to give me some peace. Do you even have a current driver's license? Of course I do. How? You've never had a car since I've known you. When it comes time to renew it, I take the bus to the photo center. Tony laughed as he merged into the freeway toward Allentown. You take the bus to renew your driver's license. You realize how funny that sounds? So at one point, you learned how to drive. In my grandfather's Mustang, yes, I know how to drive. I just prefer not to. No car payments, no insurance premiums, no maintenance, none of that shit. Yeah, but now you got money, you can afford all that shit. Victor merely stared at the passing landscape. So what kind of car are you thinking about? Tony prodded. I don't know, something nice, something with style, something I can buy in cash. I got just what you need, man. I know a guy selling a slightly used but pristine Camaro with. Victor rolled his eyes. No used cars, man. I'm not buying somebody else's problems. When I said something nice, I meant something new. Tony held up a hand. Hear me out, bro. This car I'm talking about is perfect. It's a 2010 Imperial Blue Camaro LT with 300 horsepower, only 42,000 miles. Garage kept. I worked on this car personally, so I can vouch for its condition. Well, who owns it now? An old dude named Hal Marks. We used to fix police cars together in Bethlehem. I'm telling you, man, this Camaro is badass. Well, how much? Only 15 grand. If it's so badass, why is he selling it so cheap? Hal's almost 70. Gonna retire next year. He don't have kids to inherit the car when he kicks, so he had to make a decision. It's a great deal. Come on, man. Ain't no harm in looking at it, right? Mom had mentioned black ice before they left the house. Or was it Dad? Victor couldn't remember. All he knew was that his parents weren't speaking anymore, nor were they moving. Blood smeared the side of his mother's head, more on the front passenger window. From his vantage point, Victor couldn't see his father behind the wheel. Somehow, Victor was lying above the back seat. Above it. No, below it. The back seat was on top. He was at the bottom. The dome light was a few inches to his left. Outside, sleet pelted the van, tapping on glass, pinging off metal. Ignoring the throbbing in the left side of his head, Victor craned his neck to peer through the windshield. The world was upside down. He remembered now. They had hit ice on a sharp curve and Dad lost control. The van had slid sideways off the road before tumbling down a hill. In the distance, sirens and air horns grew louder, yet couldn't drown out the persistent electronic chime from the dashboard. Mom? Victor rolled over onto his side, gripped her shoulder, tugged on her coat. She didn't respond. Panic finally took hold as Victor crawled between the front seats and shook his father's arm. Dad? Dad, please! Crying now, Victor slumped between the seats as the dimming gray sky flashed red and blue. Voices shouted. They came in through the rear passenger door. Hands gently tugged Victor from the car, placed him on a stretcher. Someone spoke to him, but Victor wasn't paying attention. All he could hear was the damn dashboard alarm, no matter how far they carried him from the wreckage. With a jolt, Victor sat up on his sofa and squinted at the TV. The main menu of a Blu-ray disc flashed a repeating loop of scenes from the movie he'd been watching when he dozed off. It was the only source of light in the otherwise dark apartment. With a sigh, he slid his hand along the cushion beside him until he found the remote and turned off the Blu-ray player and TV. Victor rubbed his temples, tried to push the memory from his mind, yet the damn chime persisted. It was accompanied now by other noises. Heavy-booted footsteps and scraping metal. Through the fading fog of sleep, Victor realized it was coming from the parking lot. He shot out of his seat and dashed to the sliding doors that opened to the balcony. He shoved aside the vertical blinds, followed by the glass and screen doors. In the parking space directly below, the driver's side door of the Camaro was wide open. Since Victor had backed the car into the space, he could clearly distinguish a leg protruding from the driver's seat. Hey, get the hell out of my car, asshole! The leg shifted, and a tall, bald black man climbed out. Victor raised an eyebrow. Jeans and a leather coat in this weather? The would-be thief made his way toward the rear of the Camaro and stood under the pale orange glow of a nearby lamppost. Victor leaned forward to get a better look at his face, now drenched in blood from what looked like a bullet hole in the middle of his forehead. Victor pushed away from the railing as the dude raised a chrome-plated semi-automatic pistol. That ain't your car, white boy. Shit! Victor dove back into his apartment, knees smacking the edge of the screen door, dislodging it from its tracks and sending it crashing to the deck. But there was no gunfire. And the death knell faded into silence. After a moment, Victor sat up and peered through the spindles of the balcony railing. He could see the Camaro. All of its doors were closed. There was no sign of the bloody car thief. So, why did I hear the chime? Victor crept back outside. The parking lot was devoid of life. Roused by the commotion, a few neighbors along the front of the building emerged, but Victor ignored them as he lifted the screen door and leaned it against the side railing. He ducked back into his apartment and snatched his phone from the coffee table. It was just after 1:30 in the morning. Victor drew a long, deep breath as his thoughts raced to catch up with the events of the past 5 minutes. Why did I let Tony talk me into a Camaro? He was right. The car's flawless, but now it's a target. Should have bought a house with a garage first. Only had this car 2 days and some douchebag tries to boost it. Why didn't the friggin' alarm go off? After walking out to inspect the Camaro, Victor brought in a chair from the balcony. He closed the sliding door, but left the vertical blinds open and sat in the dark. By the time he nodded off, it was nearly dawn. After all, he didn't dare fall asleep while a car thief was still out there, lurking in the night. The following day, Victor winced as he rolled his shopping cart out of the air-conditioned supermarket and into the sweltering soup of the summer's first heat wave. And it's only 10 a.m. Ahead of him, a plump, rubescent elderly woman in a sleeveless flowered muumuu pulled 4 bulging tote bags out of her cart and started toward the parking lot. The moment he saw her, the chime began ringing in his head. Oh, damn it, not again. He started after the woman, fearing she might give up the ghost any second. She'd barely waddled 3 steps when the handle on one of her bags snapped. Oh, hell. As Victor approached, she set her burdens down on the pavement, struggling to find the best way to deal with the problem. Ma'am, can I help you get your bags to your car? Oh, no, thank you, the woman smiled, despite streams of sweat streaking her ruddy face. I'm actually going to the bus stop. It should be here in the next hour or so. In this heat? Ma'am, it's got to be over 95 degrees. Oh, I can manage. It wouldn't be the first time. Well, how about I give you a ride home? I promise I'm not a crazy person out to hurt anybody. I would just feel terrible letting you wait in the heat. I know the buses don't run often on Sundays. Well, I don't want to be any trouble. It's no trouble, man. Maybe this time I can finally save one of you. He extended a hand. My name's Victor. I'm Annette. My friends call me Nettie. Thank you so much for your help. I normally don't go grocery shopping on Sunday, but my son is coming home this week. He's been away for a while, and I want to cook him a nice meal. Victor pushed his bags to the back of the cart. Once Nettie's were loaded, they made their way across the parking lot to the Camaro. Oh my, look at this car. Oh, my son would love something like this. Thank you. Victor opened the passenger door for her, and after loading groceries in the trunk and returning the cart, he climbed into the driver's seat and cranked up the air. Nettie had already buckled herself in. It's just as immaculate on the inside, although your time is off by a few hours. Victor frowned as he looked at the radio in the center console. Sure enough, the clock displayed 1:30. Huh, didn't even notice that. Well, I'll fix it later. If that's the worst problem with this car, I can definitely live with it. He found it 4 days later. From his laptop screen, a picture of Annette Terro smiled back at him. I'm so sorry, he whispered, before sending her obituary to the printer. She had died the morning after he'd brought her home. He should have known. The chime had continued until well after he'd dropped her off, and only faded after he'd pulled away. Still, he'd held out hope. Victor stood and pulled a 3-inch ring binder from the top shelf of the bookcase. He opened it and stared for a moment at the first page. 10 days already? Craig Breyer had been a co-worker in the receiving department. Victor had heard the chime while working with him and about 8 other people sorting shipments on the loading dock. By the end of that week, Victor had silently apologized to Craig's closed coffin. He pulled Annette's obituary from the printer and read it over one last time. Survived by her son, Jeff. My son is coming home this week. He's been away for a while, and I want to cook him a nice meal. Sorry, Jeff. I tried to save her. Victor slipped the page into the electric three-hole punch before adding it to his collection. He flipped through the pages, the years, the faces, recalling the first time he'd showed the binder to Tony shortly after he'd revealed his ability. That binder looks heavy, bro. Victor snapped the ring shut after adding the latest entry. You have no idea. It's like the Grim Reaper's scrapbook. But I'm not the Grim Reaper. Well, then why do you save their obituaries? Because I couldn't save them. Sometimes I hear the chime in a crowd of people and I don't even know who it's for. Sometimes I hear it when it's too late to do anything. But there are other times when I know who it's going to be and I try to save the person, but nothing I do ever matters. Those are the ones I keep in this binder. I don't know how you stay sane with that ability. To be honest, I was already used to it when I got to high school. How the hell do you get used to hearing death? That shit would creep me out, man. Though not as creepy as saving obituaries. I don't have a choice. Not like I can turn it off. Believe me, I've tried. Pills, therapy, booze, you name it. Well, if you hear it when my time comes, you will let me know, right? At least give me a fighting chance. What are friends for? Tony pointed to the binder. You know, their deaths weren't your fault. By keeping that thing, you're only torturing yourself, man. You need to let that shit go. It ain't healthy. Victor snapped the binder closed, bringing his focus back to the present. I wish I could, amigo. He looked up at the clock on the wall. Time for a swim. Another day of sweltering temperatures meant a few laps in the complex's indoor pool before work. The usual horde of screaming kids and self-absorbed parents congregated near the shallow end, leaving the deeper side to Victor, and a raven-haired 20-something with a body that absolutely deserved to be flaunted in the two-piece baby blue bikini that matched the color of her eyes. This was one of those occasions when Victor was grateful he'd kept himself in shape. He might never have six-pack abs, but his stomach was flat and his limbs toned, thanks to his workout regimen and the fact that his warehouse job kept him on the move most of the day. As she stepped out of the pool and started toward him, Victor realized that he had seen her before at one of the other buildings. As she passed, he smiled and aimed a thumb toward the opposite end of the pool. If only I could put up a wall to block off that racket. She rolled her eyes. Tell me about it. Some of those kids are my neighbors. I can't get away from them. Wait, did you just move into Building A last week? She shifted her weight and looked away for a moment. Yeah, why? I thought you looked familiar, and now I remember seeing you on one of my runs. We almost collided while you were unloading stuff from a van. Her eyes widened as she let out a short laugh. Victor felt something quiver deep in his chest. Keep it cool, dude. Don't screw this up. Oh my God, that's right. I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you. That day was a blur of activity. A moving day usually is. He extended a hand. I'm Victor. She accepted the gesture with a tepid grip. Erica. So, do you run every day? Yeah, as long as the weather cooperates, which is why a swim seemed like a better idea today. When the temps climb above 90, I'm in the water. I work nights, so I usually run mid-morning between 9 and 10. Gotcha. Well, as it happens, I'm off from work this week, and there's a storm coming tonight that's supposed to cool things down. So if you decide to run tomorrow and wouldn't mind a partner... Victor nodded casually. That's right, not too eager. Sure, that would be great. And if it doesn't cool off, she waved toward the pool, maybe I'll see you back here. Victor smiled. Sounds like a plan. Where's your apartment? Building C, number 6, second floor. Great. Well, obviously you know where I live. If you don't knock by 10, I'll swing by your place. Sounds like a plan. You already said that, idiot. By now, Victor knew he was grinning like a fool, but didn't care. Well, speaking of running, I have to take care of some errands. She scooped up her towel and keys from a nearby chase lounge. But I'll see you tomorrow, Victor. As he watched her leave, Victor realized that he was gawking like a teenager, but still didn't care. Did she just ask me out, sort of? Well, this summer just keeps getting hotter. Money, car, possible new girlfriend, all within a week? Is this happening or am I dreaming? One way to find out. Taking a deep breath, Victor ran to the edge of the pool and jumped in. On the final stretch of their morning run, they rounded the corner of Building C, separating to avoid a puddle in the middle of the parking lot from the previous night's storm. Hey! Victor slowed to a stop, sweat dripping from his nose and chin. He nodded toward his Camaro. Check out my new wheels. Well, new to me. Erica leaned forward, hands on her knees. That's yours? Camaro LT. 7 years old, only 42,000 miles. Erica stood and made her way over to the car. Oh, my ex-husband would have loved to get his hands on this. Victor wheezed out a laugh. Funny, I met an old lady at the supermarket a few days ago. She said the same thing about her son. So, how long were you married, if you don't mind my asking? Too long. It was 3 years of my life I'll never get back and would rather forget. He's the reason I moved here. Didn't want him to find me when he got out on parole. Parole? 2 days ago, Erica waved dismissively. Don't worry. He's not a murderer or anything. He used to steal cars for parts. Hence my comment about how he'd love your Camaro. I didn't find out about it until the dumbass got arrested. Anyway, that's behind me now. I'm starting over. Congrats on the car. It's a beauty. Well, if you'd want to take a ride sometime, just let me know. Victor snapped his fingers. Hey, what are you doing Saturday night? Erica thought for a moment. Well, I should be available after 7. I'm visiting my sister in the afternoon. What did you have in mind? After his 4th consecutive win at the water gun shootout, Victor eyed the top prizes as Erica nibbled on funnel cake beside him. It was the final night of the county fair. Victor had wanted to do something different from the standard dinner and movie date, and had been thrilled when Erica cheerfully agreed. She pointed at a row of boxed toy cars, one of which was a dark blue Camaro. You should get that. I already got the real thing. That ain't your car, white boy. Victor drew himself up sharply, as if someone had shoved an ice pack under his shirt. Did you hear that? Erica swallowed a bit of funnel cake. Hear what? That voice. Which one? There's a bazillion people here. Hey, buddy. The carny running the game leaned over as new players began taking seats. Make up your mind yet? Yeah, sorry. Victor shot a sidelong glance at Erica. You like pandas? Love pandas. Victor pointed toward the back corner. Erica laughed as the carny returned with a life-size plush panda and handed it to Victor, who, in turn, passed it to Erica in exchange for the rest of the funnel cake. She wiped her hands on her denim shorts before throwing her arms around it. How are we going to get this into your car? In the passenger seat, Erica was all but completely buried beneath the black and white behemoth in her lap. Victor checked the rearview mirror before flooring the accelerator along an empty stretch of highway. Comfortable over there? Erica rested her head on the panda's back. It's like having a massive fuzzy airbag in your face, although it's comfortable to snuggle with. Oh, I think I could give it a run for its money. Victor flashed a lopsided grin, which vanished the moment he glanced over at her. Erica and the panda were gone. Instead, a dark, bloody face stared back. From the car's sound system, the death knell blared like a klaxon. Who the hell are you? Don't get too attached, white boy. The man raised his right hand, leveling a chrome-plated pistol at Victor. She don't belong to you. Victor slammed the brakes. Tires screeched, the gun fired, and Victor awoke with a yelp. He found himself doubled over on his side, facing the alarm clock. 1:30. Always 1:30. Once the pain in his head subsided, he forced himself out of bed and stood at the window overlooking the parking lot. The Camaro was exactly where he parked it after dropping Erica off at her flat. Victor lowered himself to the floor and sat against the wall, cradling his head in his hands. It's just new car jitters. Gonna buy that house in the country and get out of here. Better times are ahead. Just breathe and think about Erica. Think about Erica. Think about Erica.